in this field. We selected Stephanie as one of the best people or person in the area that could speak about this subject, and we are very glad that she's with us. Please let me welcome Stephanie here.
Hi everyone. Well, last but not least, I would say. Let's get ready to the social event, so I will ask you to participate for this introduction. Please raise your hand if you have at least used once ChatGPT or anything like ChatGPT. Of course. Now, no, keep your hand raised. Now, if you have already asked ChatGPT something related with health, please keep your hand up. Okay, fewer people. Now, who, when you send questions related to health, was cautious about the personal data, not sharing data related to your own medical records? Okay, that's very nice. Thank you for your participation. And that's to say that maybe the question that matters today about healthcare is not whether to adopt AI into healthcare system, but more how to make sure that that transformation reaches patients. What role AI can play in healthcare, not in replacing people who care for us, but how to give them more time, better information, and also how to reduce the unnecessary burden for them. So let me introduce myself briefly. You can notice I like colorful jackets first. And well, to be more serious, I am PhD in computer science, and for 10 years I have developed an expertise in healthcare systems. First, leading AI-based project for 8 years about lung cancer screening in a strong partnership between the University of Nice, Côte d'Azur, and also with the Hospital University of Nice, and French startup called TherapixCell. During these 8 years, I could develop 360 degrees vision about what is a healthcare system, from the proof of concept to the integration into clinical practice. So now, thanks to this experience, I can consult for hospitals and also medtech companies in order to prepare their prototypes so that they get ready to go straight to the point very quickly. I also teach medical professionals because we need to integrate them into this practice because they have the knowledge and we would like to help them use AI consciously. It's, I think, one of the strong point of AI Monaco Association. I've heard the introduction. Well, that's about me. We can talk later if one of these elements is important for you. So now I would like to go through 5 different steps. First, I will present to you the healthcare paradox, then the current situation about healthcare today. Third, I will also show you why AI in healthcare fails to scale, how we should unlock deployment, and finally, how to look ahead. So, where is the healthcare paradox? Well, it's because we have more demand, but fewer hands and rising costs. First, we will have an aging population. 22% of EU citizens are aged over 65 in 2025. And predicted to reach 32.5% by 2100. It's not aging the problem, it's aging in good health. I'm very happy to be part of this generation that can live longer, but how long will I be in good health? How long will I be autonomous And also how many data will be generated with IoT, with smartwatches, how many radio will be created to analyze my health records. And that's the main issue, because meanwhile the World Healthcare Organization predict a shortfall of 11 million health workers. So how we will be able to analyze our records and know how to predict our conditions. In parallel, there will be retirement, but today already we can notice that 54% of physicians experience burnout in 2025. So if already the current medical doctors feel bad, maybe this shortfall will stop before we predict. And last but not least, the inefficiency. 20% of healthcare spending is wasted on administration complexity and duplicated tests, and here we can all think that AI has a role to improve. And there is another thing that we forget to mention in most debates, that not adopting AI has also a cost, because delayed diagnosis, and here once again AI can help in triage and make it faster, unnecessary consultations that could also be reduced using AI, and there is also estimated healthcare savings that AI could unlock by 2050, around $100 billion to $600 billion. So all that to say, we all agree that AI is necessary to implement in healthcare. But currently, there is a translation gap. Once again, we can notice that it's an exploding market. Today, we are about $37 billion market, and it's expected in 10 years to reach $600 billion. So that will be exploding, of course. 85% of healthcare organizations have already adopted generative AI in 2024. And the regional investment is also very good, $3 return for $1 invested, so that's great. Another thing that is positive is that the regulatory opens the door. The latest 10 years, yes. We have reached accumulating 1,400 medical devices based on AI. Once again, that's quite interesting and also increasing very fast. 76% cases are in radiology, but I would like also to come back to the first questions I asked to you. Using ChatGPT to answer questions related to your own health when it's not a medical device, it's not secure, it's not certified, but you use it. Meanwhile, we force our medical doctors to use a 5-year developed medical device, and that maybe are not that strong because, well, maybe they are biased on certain population data. We will see that later. So here maybe we will have a gap. We will need to think about regulation of ChatGPT use, or maybe we should think about how to train patients about the question related to their data and the danger for them. Another interesting fact, at least this study is from France. We have a lot of innovation in our public institution, but they rarely go more than scientific papers. How comes? How comes it doesn't go to the clinician's hand? How comes our startups are acquired by United States in the end? Well, a solution maybe would be to have the support from public institutions. Let's say, for example, the solution proposed by Anna could be used directly by banks, for example, and not only giving money to support the development, but also to show her that they trust her per product, and it would be the same for healthcare. That's why it's important to co-develop with hospitals themselves so that it could be a virtuous circle, but that's my own idea. Maybe I'm a little too naive. At least in the British Medical Journal, which is one of the top journals in healthcare, 2 years ago, they noticed that, unfortunately, we have lots of R&D projects that show promises for AI into healthcare, but few of them reach the clinical trial step. And even we have a Deloitte survey that showed that only 50% of the health system products are measured return on investment from AI, and only 3 reported significant returns. All that to say, we are very far from return of investment when it deals with healthcare product. And that will close the second part, because the first line shows how researchers look at healthcare programs, thinking it will be easy. But unfortunately, healthcare is much more complex ecosystem. First, we have the proof of concept. The proof of concept that will show how much this application is good, and also in order to show the medical doctors that we are very serious. Then comes the minimum viable product stage in order to get further and maybe to integrate the clinical study inclusion. And most of the time, projects think between the stage 2 and 3. And last, of course, the CE or FDA marked medical device. And that stage is rarely met when we are in the public institution. So why AI in healthcare fails to scale? Well, first, there are 4 elements that I could notice in the different projects I've been working on. The first is data privacy, trust and sovereignty. And to a certain extent, I'm happy that's an obstacle, because it's related with our own data, with privacy. But there are also good opportunities. For example, the EHDS could help on long-term shortcut some administrative issues. It will do it before we start to work, so it will really be a good idea. EU AI Act is also a good sign, but once again, it takes time before it's getting uniform through all the European countries. The bias. I have also talked earlier about bias. That's to say, most of AI devices are trained on a particular population, and when we want to test on another population, well, we don't get similar results. For example, in the lung cancer screening topic, I train on American dataset. And in order to go further on the certification, I had to test on local data from the hospital of Nice. And that took 3 years to get the approval from the National Committee of Ethics. And sovereignty also, maybe you have heard about the Microsoft platform issue in Europe. Now we will maybe be more sovereign, since we have gone through the Scaleway platform. Let's hope it will be the first step. Second challenge is the trust and adoption. First, we are not developing AI to replace, but to assist. It's important that the final call stays human. The workflow narrative, we have to get integrated into directly the healthcare system and not develop outside in the university, and one day we come with our solution and notice it's not getting integrated. Privacy by design, we have heard earlier, and evidence-grounded. Every recommendation cites the model output and its underlying study. Affordability and capital constraint, the only thing I would like you to think about here is healthcare can't invest like a tech company, because hospitals run on thin margins, public budgets, and short procurement cycles. Well, just on my side, I got grants, including 200,000 euros by AstraZeneca the second year, but it was just for short term. It was for 2 or 3 years, when my project lasted 8 years. So it means that I have, as project leader, to keep every 2 years looking for money. I'm not taking part of the development of the tool itself. I have to be on all the projects, all the challenges at the same moment. It's never secured. I have always to be on track in order to get more money. And fourth challenge is interoperability. Once again, maybe, well, now it's great. People start to think that medical doctors should be included from the beginning of the project, but we often forget to integrate the IT teams from the healthcare program. So it would be great to integrate them from the beginning. How to unlock AI in healthcare? Those are some ideas that I could develop through my expertise. First, give development a single owner. What does that mean? IT focuses on infrastructure and security. Clinicians focus on patients, procurement focuses on contracts, and vendors hand over a model and walk away. That is to say, it's not one single project. Each one of them have a little angle on the project, which is not a homogeneous point of view. So an idea would be to develop a new role, a clinician AI officer, hybrid profile between clinician, data scientist, and operations. I already teach clinicians so that they can understand what is AI product in healthcare. And why not having a full vision about all the challenges I've mentioned before. Getting money, getting IT point of view, getting the clinician point of view, of course, and also the business idea, because once again, we need money. One speaker said that earlier, we all need money. Show me the money, please. Second solution is, of course, co-design with clinicians, but not only, as I told you, with also the IT team, but also the data protection officer, so that we are aware of all challenges at a time. First, shadow. On my side, I spent more than 30 hours observing the actual clinical workflow behind the radiologist. Each week, during 8 months, I was looking what it was doing with which software to be able to see what I should do for him and how to integrate it into his practice. Then I found some open source softwares so that I could develop within these softwares and help him test it quickly. Second, so that's the sketch part I told you with the open source element. Then pilot, and finally iterate, because what you develop the 6 months, it's not what you have done the first month. That's normal, it's iterating. Third solution, it's align the incentives. As I told you, hospital is not the payer and not the patient. Each of them has their own focus, so it's important to make them converge within a single point of view. Fourth solution, build the data foundation, not just the model, because it's not the model itself that is good or not, it's the integration into a system. Another speaker said that earlier, it's not the model, it's the system that is surrounding the model that is important. Skip a layer and the stack above it collapse, especially the governance. If there is not a cross vision between all the elements, between university, between the hospital and the industrial partner, well, we will go nowhere because we don't have a common vision. So the clinical AI deployment roadmap on my 8-year project, the start was 6 months, the proof of concept 1 year, but meanwhile I was looking for money. And then I was also, during the POC, I was already trying to find regulatory constraints. I was applying for the approval of the National Committee so that I'm sure I can test my proof of concept on local data, as I mentioned earlier. And one day, maybe it will become a medical device, but then it needs 1 million euros and some support on the regulatory aspects. I'm waiting for you later. Last part that is quite positive, it's the next opportunities. The silver economy is quite a good opportunity by 2035. As you can see, well, it will grow by, in 10 years from $57 billion, we will go up to $400 billion. Especially not about the aging people, but also about the persistent caregiver shortage. It's important to take this into consideration, the life of people helping aging people. 4 use cases that will define the next 5 years: smart home care assistant, cognitive health companion, Gen AI caregiver co-pilot. And there is one that maybe you should take care of. It's predicting frailty engine. I like to call it the digital twin. Maybe you have heard about this kind of project already. It's how to make a digital twin of you, thanks to your records, and apply different models so that we can finally find the one that is the most suitable for you. And it's not only digital twin for patients, it can also be for the medical practitioners. Right now, I am working with an orthopedist surgeon on a digital twin of operating room in order to understand what is going on in the room, if it's correct or if it should be improved, and what should be improved. Is it communication or any other aspects? On top of that, in parallel, I'm working with a researcher in economics about AI deployment in French healthcare. We have more than 50 interviews. We have some people working at the Hospital of Monaco, and we are looking for experiences from the reality. So we are looking for medical practitioners, but also administrative people, IT people, DPO. Anyone working in healthcare structure would be welcome to answer my questions in order to understand how AI is deployed in the French healthcare. So where this could go, I would like you to keep this in mind before leaving. AI in healthcare is not failing because the models are not good. It's failing because the deployment is treated as an afterthought. It should be integrated from the beginning and not as a side project. And companies that will succeed are not necessarily the one with the best algorithms, but the one who design workflow from day one, build the data foundation first, and co-create with clinicians. In parallel, I'm also very interested in animating groups of women in data science, because we are not very much working in this kind of field of application. And it's important to develop and to show the youngsters that IT is also made for women. And I told you at the beginning, I'm also very interested in the education part. So with a friend of mine, we host podcasts to popularize AI applications, because it's important that patients understand what is at stake. So, well, if one of all those information is interesting you, let's have a call. Let's have a talk after. And well, thank you for listening.